I just find it hard to believe that people do fall for it in great numbers in this day and age, really.
I believe very much in what I do, and I'm genuine about what I do.
What they're going to find, they're going to have an interesting experience, but I'm going to make sure it's a safe experience.
I woke up in what was my room, which was like in an attic room, and I'm actually terrified of birds. And I thought something was like, I was convinced there was a pigeon biting my toes. So I sat up, but when I looked down the end of the bed, there was an old lady sitting in a rocking chair. She had her hair back in a very tight bun, and she was pinching my toes to wake me up. And but she didn't scare me or anything once I saw her, and she was just saying to me, you know, that I was here to pass on messages, and I was going to help people, and that I wasn't ever to be afraid of it. And then she was gone. And from that point then, I mean, people would come into the house and I would say, oh, that's your grandmother standing beside you. And of course there wouldn't be anybody standing there. And I thought they were mad because they couldn't see this person and I could.
Well, I grew up near a place called Blackpool, which is the northwest of England, a seaside tourist resort. And I got this kind of sort of summer holiday job when I was a kid, when I was about 10 years old, right through my teenage years, working in a joke shop come magic shop. And we used to get all the local showbiz characters coming in, and also all the kind of market traders and hustlers. You know, there's a lot of people kind of earning a shifty buck in Blackpool in those days. And I got to know people like the fortune tellers, the gypsy fortune tellers, who were doing tarot and palm reading, crystal ball stuff. And so I learned the techniques that they used, and I was actually genuinely interested in it, sort of half believing it for real.
I think my mum, bless her, spent most of my childhood with her hand firmly clamped over my mouth, because obviously I had no filter and I was just coming out and saying these things. Then as I began to understand it more, I learned how to filter it then and not just blurt it out, because people did think I was a bit nuts, I think. You know?
So when I was 19, I set off to Europe doing the backpacking thing, doing magic, doing street shows, magic and fire eating, but quite a few places we weren't allowed to do shows, the police didn't like it. So I set up doing palmistry and tarot reading, and learned that I made more money doing that. And what was quite interesting was when I was doing it, you know, by the book, sort of the proper techniques, for want of a better phrase, it was all right, because you're using kind of, you know, a little bit of body language reading, cold reading as it's known, but also I was using these kind of fake techniques and finding that was far more successful, and people were really buying into it. And it became sort of quite uncomfortable, really, because, you know, I knew what I was doing was pretty much trickery. It was a way to earn a crust, but people were actually, you know, emotionally quite invested in it. And there's one particular occasion when a girl came along, I think she was an Italian girl, and she was quite distraught, and basically the first card I turned over was the death card. And she burst out crying, and it turns out it's because she'd come to see me because her father was ill. And, you know, to the purist, you can explain that the death card doesn't mean death, but try explain to that who's worried about the father's health. So that's when it started to go a bit sour, and I kind of, you know, thought maybe this is not the way forward for me as a career thing.
Basically, everybody's born with a psychic ability. Most children, they talk with their imaginary friends, and parents kind of tend to, no, that's not right. And so by the age of 7, because of their conditioning, they tend to lose it altogether. Then there's people like myself that would work and study all our lives, and then there's people that it comes and goes with, and I affectionately call them badly tuned radios. There's like 2 stations coming in at once, but you can fine tune it, you know, and it all comes from the left side of the brain then as well, which is the creative side. So yeah, I would think that most people have had a psychic aspect to them at some point in their life, like, you know, déjà vu. I'm not a strong believer in coincidence. I think everything happens for a reason. We've all had a, you know, oh, I knew that, but I didn't know how I knew it, or dreamt of something, or thought about something and the phone rang. That happens to everybody.
But what was interesting about the whole process of doing it for a short while for a living was finding out, you know, when you get an accurate hit, you can be as vague as you like, one accurate hit, and they're totally sold. And of course, the way to be accurate is to cheat.
There were 2 instances of human sacrifice in this building. I'm not going to say in this very room because I don't know, but in this building there were 2 instances of human sacrifice, one of a dwarf, one of the daughter of a farmer in the locality, which is what brought the whole thing to an end. She was sacrificed, they celebrated a black mass, then they ate her. So there are dark forces in this building. I will be here at all times. This is when it gets serious. I will be here at all times. I will be guiding the person, and whoever we choose What they're going to find, they're going to have an interesting experience, but I'm going to make sure it's a safe experience. So let's get ready to rumble.
There used to be the Fraudulent Mediums Act, which was actually repealed about, I think it was about 4 years ago. And that was, it was illegal to pretend to be a medium on stage for profit. And now it's covered by the sort of advertising codes of practice, the trading standards thing. But the problem is that all you need to do, basically, is use the phrase "for entertainment purposes" on your publicity material, and you're kind of covered, because it's the equivalent of doing a magic show, basically. If anybody complains about it, you go, oh, well, it's for entertainment purpose, we were just saying we could contact the dead.
I would love to see some kind of board or committee set up that could regulate it. I'm not sure how easy that would be to do, though. Do you know what I mean?
Well, this is the thing. A lot of people have suggested this, and it's a great ploy from a psychic's point of view to say, yes, there are a lot of fakes out there and it gives us all a bad name, we should be regulated. But how do you regulate something that doesn't exist?
Don't sort of pick out a psychic out of a phone book or an advertisement in a newspaper. Go by word of mouth. If somebody recommends that person, then go to that person.
Your hand is moving closer and closer now to your face, and as it moves closer to your face, at some point your eyes are going to change focus. And as your eyes change focus, just allow your eyes to close and relax. Relax. Deeply, deeply relaxed. I'm going to swing your arm 3 times. And as I swing your arm 3 times, with each swing of your arm you become more and more relaxed. Once becoming deeply, deeply relaxed. 2, sinking down deeper and deeper. 3, deeply, deeply relaxed. Deeply, deeply relaxed. Ross, you're going to relax more and more over the next few moments. You're going to relax deeper and deeper and deeper. A strange thing is, right now you're sinking so far down, but your hand, the hand that I've just dropped, is becoming lighter and lighter and wants to float upwards. It wants to float upwards. It wants to float out, and up and up and up. It wants to float and float and float. And now the elbow wants to bend, and your hand is moving towards your head. And as your hand touches your head, it's becoming stuck to your head, and you're sinking deeper and deeper and deeper. And if you try to remove your hand from your head, you're going to find it will not remove. You're going to find this quite funny. You're going to try to remove your hand from your head, and you're going to find this quite funny. You might even start giggling, and that's quite all right, Ross. That's quite all right, because what other way can you react to something as silly as this? It's quite a strange experience. If you hear people giggling, you're going to feel the giggle growing in yourself, and it's just going to get funnier and funnier. And I don't know how it happens, I don't know why it happens, but you're finding your fingers becoming stuck harder, and you're finding it funnier. And the weird thing is, Ross, when I say 1, 2, 3, you're going to be able to just release your hand will fall down, and you're deeply, deeply, deeply relaxed. You are deeply, deeply, deeply relaxed. Anytime I touch you on the shoulder, you will relax twice as deeply. It's that simple, Ross. Any sound you hear helps you relax more and more.
The most important thing to me is that one person that comes through and that comes in for a session, and they leave knowing that their loved one that passed is okay, and that they've gotten the validation that they need, that it is their loved one that's come through from spirit, and they leave happier. They're still going to grieve that person and miss that person, but I think that just their perception or the level of energy that's around them changes into a much more calm one, and I think they go away feeling that everything is going to be okay. So if that just happens for 1 person out of 10 in any given day, that my job is done. I'm happy.
The problem is that a lot of these mediums, it's not just somebody saying, oh, there's a grey-haired old lady and she says everything will be fine. Some of these people are, impersonating people's dead children in front of them, That's not helping the grieving process. There's this argument that it kind of brings comfort to people and it's some kind of closure. And it's not, it's the opposite if you think about it. If you think you can still contact your dead loved ones, that's not closure. And there's quite a lot of evidence to show that it actually delays the grieving process, because it's just leaving this hope open. The problem is, I always look at it as kind of the analogy is it's like a heroin addict. If you're going to give up heroin, you have to go through the whole cold turkey process, which is awful, it's big and it's terrible, and that's what bereavement is. But then you eventually get over it to some extent. Whereas if you're going to see a medium, that's like having another little fix and another little fix, and you'll always want that, and you're never quite cured from it.
I do ask for specific detail to be given, so that they know for sure that it's their person that I'm talking to, that I'm passed on a message from, and I feel they leave knowing that death is not a scary thing, that there is an afterlife, and that we will meet up again. And I think they leave knowing that their family member, their past, or their friend or their child loved them, and that love continues.
I don't believe in an afterlife, and this is what divides a lot of people, and this is what makes mediums their money. I think it's a human ego thing. Just people can't bear to believe that either themselves or their loved ones, once they're gone, that's it. But there's a clue in the phrase dead. It's kind of, once you're gone, you're gone. Otherwise, why wouldn't you carry on in this life, And
I think some people do wonder what happens to us after we die. Is it just a black hole? Like when my dad passed, and even though this is the kind of work I do, and he was always very proud when people told him, they met me or, he'd read things about me. But he always used to say to me, are you doing your voodoo again? And he was skeptical about it, and that was cool. And but a couple of days before he passed, and he knew he was passing, he asked me, did I really believe there was an afterlife? And I said, absolutely, Dad. And a few family members of his had died in the few years before that. And I said, you're going to get quite a good surprise because you're going to see your family, and, you're absolutely going to be okay. And he had a very peaceful passing, was very at peace with his passing, which was wonderful, and wonderful for us as his family to see that. So he said to me, well, I tell you what, Sam, he said, I'll give you a sign, So I said, cool. So Dad passed on the Monday morning, and we were burying him on the Thursday, and we kept him at home up till the Thursday morning. But on the Wednesday night, I'd gone to bed, and we were born and raised in London, and Dad used to always bring us to the Spike Milligan tree in Hyde Park, and he was a great storyteller, and the Spike Milligan tree's got fairies and gnomes set into it. It's actually called the Elfin Tree, but Spike Milligan and his friends put these statues in there, and you'd pick a gnome and Dad would make up a whole story about it. And in my dream, we were both adults looking at this tree, and Dad said he adored my daughter Amy, and he said, I never got to bring Amy, won't you promise me you'll bring her? And I said, yeah, absolutely, Dad, I will, So the next morning we get up, and Mum is in a panic because she suddenly realised she's got no photograph of Dad on his own to put on the coffin in the church. So Simon goes to take out every photo around the house. There was either I was with Dad or some other family member with Dad, and we just wanted one in his own. So Simon went to get the box of photos that Dad kept, and as he opened the box, the first photo he took out, and he went, oh, look, Sam. He said, there's you and Dad, and there was me and Dad. I was about age 4, and we were sitting at the Spike Milligan tree. And I thought, you've given me my sign. So I knew, as far as I was concerned, he was passed safely into spirit and everything was okay.
Now, Ross, we're ready to begin the experiment. I want you to walk to the other door in the room, but do not open it. Because when you open that other door, you are going to be stepping into this building, the Hellfire Club, but you're going to be stepping in with the doors of perception opened, with your eyes cleansed, and with your inner eye you can see everything here. And when I say everything, I mean all the spirits, all the forces that shaped this place, that gave this place history. They will all be open to you in one moment. I'm about to pass the gift on to you like I explained. But one thing, Ross, I will be here, and at any point, if you feel nervous, if you need to come back, just say and I can bring you back.
Well, when you go and see a medium one-to-one for a private reading, as opposed to watching one, when you're in an audience in a theatre, you've got to remember they already have some information about you. If you phone them to make an appointment, there's always, if they were going to cheat, they could always kind of, look at that number and probably get an address or an area that you live from that. They've got your name, and nowadays with search engines on the internet, that's all you need to find a certain amount of information. But more often than not, they won't even bother with that kind of thing, because you can tell a lot of about a person just by looking at them or hearing their accent. Everybody does it when someone walks into a room. You look at someone's dress and the way they walk, and you just instantly make subconscious judgments about what their background might be education-wise, their sexuality, what kind of job they might do, what kind of music they might listen to, all that kind of thing. Now, when you feed that information back to that person, they do this filtering process because they've come to see you about a specific, and generally people go to see mediums about one of 3 general subjects, which is either kind of career and money issues, or it's about health, or it's about relationships. And so, what you're listening for when you go and see a medium is something that relates to that. Now, if the medium's telling you general things that don't, sort of hit a nail, then you kind of disregard them. So I'd always recommend, if you go to see a medium, record it. And if they object to that, That should sound fishy. So record it. When you listen back, I think you'd be quite surprised because, everybody's got that tale about a friend of theirs went to see them and they didn't ask anything, they didn't know the name, really, and, but they told them something so specific that they couldn't have known. Well, yes, they could. They probably told them about 50 different things, but only 3 or 4 hit home, and one of those might have been so lucky, it might have been an educated guess, but that's the one the person remembers.
I'll definitely feel the energy change in the room, like the vibration will change. And I'll get a sense of whether it's male or female. As I said, I don't see so clearly anymore. Sometimes they may give me, just say for example, somebody belonged to a past and they were missing the tip of their finger. They'll show me that so that I'll know that I can say that this person's missing the tip of their finger. Something that's unique to them. The voice, I would kind of say it sounds pretty much like my own, but higher or lower depending on male or female. It's almost as like the thought comes into my head and my mouth just opens and I have no idea what I'm going to say to the client. There's no preparation, there's no, oh gosh, Conor's coming today for a reading, what will I say to him? There's nothing like that, I can't prepare for it. So it's like once the person sits down, the mouth opens and it comes out.
When you go and see a medium who performs on stage in front of a big theatre, it's a slightly different technique. I mean, they've actually got an advantage in a way, because if they throw out a name, I can see, a Pat, or maybe it's a Pam or something like that. You've quite often got 1,500, 2,000 people in the audience. Of course that's going to relate to somebody there. It's probably going to relate to, probably 10% of the people there. And what they can do visually, because the house lights are always up, is they can narrow in to people nudging each other or leaning forward. And so, you kind of pick and if it doesn't go anywhere with that group of people, you go on to another group of people. And that's the other thing, they tend to group it as well. If it's one person reacting, then what they'll do is, are you with anybody? And they'll get the whole group as a whole. So when they throw out another name or another detail, it might apply to one of their friends. So, they've got the advantage always. The other way they use the situation is by doing what's called pre-show work. And pre-show work is collecting information about certain members of the audience before the show. Now you think, how would you do that? And it's a bit of a... I don't know, but some people think that there are plants in the audience. That's a very seldom used thing. The other thing that I keep reading these days is that, they've got your ticket details. That's technically illegal. You can't use someone's credit card details from the theatre to then Google them. However, it's far more basic than that a lot of the time. What they do is ask you to fill in information on pieces of paper before the show starts. Now, for anybody who's never been to a medium's theatre show, that sounds preposterous. Why would that not be obvious? But who knows? That's what happens. There's a certain well-known medium that has these little bits of paper and it says who you want to get a message from, what you want to ask them or what the message is about, your name, and it actually got the cheek to say at the bottom, not too much, about 30 words will be fine. Right, so a huge percentage of the audience fill those in, they're put in a box, and then that box gets taken backstage a short while before the show, and then gets placed on the stage, and lo and behold, this message comes from the spirit world. I might be totally wrong, maybe that's some kind of trans-dimensional postal service for ghosts, but I know what I think it is.
I mean, I'm not going to upset somebody, and if an energy comes through that maybe wasn't particularly pleasant to them in life, I'm not going to allow them to be still unpleasant to them from spirit.
I just find it hard to believe that people do fall for it in great numbers in this day and age, really.
I believe very much in what I do, and I'm genuine about what I do. I don't feel the need to apologise or to justify who I am and what I do, as long as my client is happy leaving, and I've had many of those that have written to me and said that it's changed their perspective and they feel much happier and much more relieved about where and what is happening with their loved one that's deceased. I'm happy with that.
There's a great expression actually, which I think was from a fellow Irishman, Graham Linehan, the comedy writer. He referred to mediums as misery leeches. And I think that's exactly what they are. They're exploiting people's bereavement, grief, and taking advantage when people are at their lowest.
I'm about to transfer the gift to you, Ross. I'm just going to give a gentle touch of the lips to your hand. You can feel the gift. Now, Ross, are you ready to open that door? Ross, when I say now, you're going to open that door and step through, and you're going to be in the Hellfire Club, but you're not going to be physically viewing things. You're going to be viewing things with the mind's eye, and you will be able to see everything that is here, us and the rest. I hope you enjoy the experience. If you get scared, all you have to do is come back to us. Just tell me and I will bring you back. Do not wander too far from this building. Ross, put your hand on the door now. Open the door and step through, Ross. Look around. What can you see, Ross? Fire. How much fire can you see, Ross?
Fireplace.
You can see a fireplace. Is there a fire in the fireplace? Yes. Ross, do you get a feeling, are there people around you, Ross? Yes. I want you to look at the people. Are there a lot of people or a few?
8.
There are 8 people around, okay? Look at one of the 8 people, male or female? Male. Look at his clothing. Is it modern clothing or is it no? What is he wearing? Just in rough terms. What colour is it? Dark or bright?
Cravat.
Cravat. Young or old? Now, I want you to look around the other 8 people. Are there any women here?
Yes.
How many women here? 1. Can you describe the woman to us, young or old?
Young.
How is she feeling? Do you get
Nervous.
nervous? Do you get a feeling that she's here of her own free will? No. Can she see you? Can the men see you?
No.
No. But she can see you. What age would you describe her as?
18.
18. Is she? Are any of the people concerned for her? Is she with anyone or is she?
No.
No. Is she restrained in any way?
No.
No. But do you feel a feeling of menace here? Do you want to see any of the other rooms? Are we upstairs or downstairs?
Downstairs.
Downstairs. Do you want to go upstairs? Don't worry, we're with you. Do you want to try going upstairs?
No.
No. Why do you feel there is? Are you getting a bad feeling about upstairs?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, Ross, this is going to be slightly, I'm going to ask you to push the board out a little bit. There is a connection between me and you at the moment. There is a connection between you and your physical body as well. If you look, you can probably see a thin silver thread linking you back towards your physical body. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes. That line will not snap. It may stretch, it will not snap. I want you to begin walking up the stairs, Ross. I'm with you. I want you to begin walking up the stairs. Are you walking up the stairs? Yes. Tell me when you get to the top of the stairs, Ross. No. You came up those stairs fairly slowly. Ross, which direction do you feel the menace coming from?
The door.
The door. Can you hear anything? Ross, what might be through the door might be scary, but trust me, I'm here with you. I want you told me the men could not see you. I want you to open the door and look inside. It's not easy, is it? Please just try.
No!
What do you see, Ross?
No!
What do you see, Ross?
No!
What do you see, Ross? I'm with you. What do you see?
No!
Ross, do you want to come back from that door? Come back from that.
Yes.
Come back from that door. Come back. You're outside that door. I want you to close that door. I want you to close that door. The door is closed, is it, Ross? Yes. Did you see people or was it a presence? A presence.
Any messages for you?
Yeah.
Well, when you walked in, you brought 2 male entities in with you. I felt an older male and a younger male. The younger male I felt might be on like a cousin level. There would have been a shock factor to his passing, an accident or suicide, an event that took his life. Seems very intrigued by what you do.
An old and a young and a maybe and various options there. Now, the interesting thing is there, I mean, I don't know, is any of that particularly accurate? Was there anything that hit?
No, well, I mean, I have a granddad that passed several years ago, but no young person
And how did
I
he
know.
pass?
Just old age.
Old age, right. So that basically that's not accurate. So any male person that passed would fit that description, old or young. But what you remember after that reading, if you bought into that thing initially, is that she was spot on because she said an old person passed away, forgetting that she said it was an event, as in an accident or a suicide, and forgetting that there's also the option for young. So all she's actually said there is that some point in your life a male person has died.
And the older male comes through and hear a lot of music with him. So I'm thinking a granddad, but a musical background, or a musical background to somebody in your family. And he mentions you teaching. So I don't know if that's what you're doing now, or it's something that's going to be coming up, like maybe workshops and talking about your profession and enabling others to do it.
It's something you're doing now, could be doing in the future, could be workshop, could be teaching, could be, and again, it's quite vague.
The work that you're doing, I mean, will enable you to teach others, and you'll go on to do that and be very successful in that, and very successful in the work that you do. And I'm picking up the name, it's like Colin or Colin, that type of name. Would that mean anything to you?
Colin or something like that in Ireland, the chances of someone not knowing someone of that name is pretty much 50-50 or less, I would have thought. So again, not really anything specific.
I feel disconnected from family when he was on Earth. Maybe he didn't just feel that he fit in some way. He's mentioning a birthday for you, so you have a birthday just gone or coming up. And when they give you a birthday wish, it means there's a blessing coming your way. It's like a gift to you. The gift, not in a pretty box with a ribbon, but a personal place, an event, something that's good for you this year, an award.
So you've got a birthday that's either been or is coming up. I would think that would apply to any.
Everybody.
When you did the interview, how far was your birthday either side of that?
About 3 months.
About 3 months.
Yeah.
So, So technically it's coming up, isn't it? So
Yes.
she's right, but still vague.
Is there a lot of Irish spelling names in your family, or spelt names?
Do I need to say anything on that? So you're Irish.
Yes.
Are there a lot of Irish sounding names in your family?
Could be.
Because I just feel that it seems to be very common in your family, or names that are of that origin.
Moving on.
The reason I'm bringing up the Irish names is because I'm not Irish. I don't understand a lot of Irish names and how to pronounce them. My guide always gives me the name in English. So if I say John, you might say Sean. If I say Anne, you say Anya. So I always say to people, keep that in mind when I'm giving names to.
Well, how convenient. That means you're doubling up your chances. So say, for example, you were half Irish, so you've got one side of your family, or if it turns out everybody, the other side was English sounding, you're kind of covered. So you're doubling up your chances of getting a hit by saying that.
Picking up on a female in your family who's also got like an Irish name or Irish sounding name, Mary. I think that she's older female, very feisty, very modern for her time frame. I just picked up on a minor health issue around her. Nothing you need to be overly concerned about, something that affects mobility but possibly quite frustrating to her.
An older, feisty Irish woman, that's something you don't get very often, isn't it? And what amazes me is how vague these spirits are that give the messages. If it's Mary or Mary, why are they not saying, she's basically saying because she's not originally Irish, she has the problem with pronunciation or whatever. If she's hearing the voice, why is the problem with that?
The frustration bit is, for you as a family, she won't accept help very easily. She's quite stubborn, very independent. So you might just have to treat her a bit like a naughty little girl and insist.
It's interesting because, I think, in my family, and I think most people's families, grandmothers, older ladies in the family do tend to be a bit stubborn. They like their independence. They don't like, the help. So, again, that could apply to anyone. What it's basically doing is taking standard character traits of different generations and playing on, because everybody likes to think, oh, actually, yes, that applies to me because she was a bit like that. She's not actually saying anything specific still. I mean, this is the thing. It's just... And what is the purpose of telling you these things?
There's also another female figure. I see a violin, a fiddle with her. The reason I'm bringing her up, she's a bit sharp-tongued. I don't mean to speak bad of a female relative, but you need to keep her at arm's length. Maybe a few little ructions coming up there.
I have to say, as an Englishman here, there does seem to be a little bit of racial stereotyping going on. Islands and a fiddle and a sharp-tongued older lady and, all that kind of stuff.
I'm not getting a name for her. I don't think she's bloodline to you. I think she's outside the family, or in-laws or outlaws, whatever you want to call them. But her energy's coming in, cancer, the breathing, so possibly around the lung area. Maybe a link to the name Eileen or Irene.
I mean, I'm not psychic, but I looking at her, I'm getting a feeling that she possibly lives alone with cats.
Been told from Spirit that you're in line for an award or accolade for the work that you do, and it will be a prize that's much valued in your industry. So that's coming around, going to be good news for you.
Oh, good.
Yeah, well, that's nice to know, isn't it? You know, everybody likes a kind of positive to hear. Also interesting that she knows, again, that you're involved in film and TV. And when you did that interview, you were at university at that point.
Yes.
So the kind of award thing could relate to a degree or a prize from there. But also, if you're off your own back making documentaries, and I know you stage plays and things like that, you're in an industry that's quite reliant on awards in general, you know, for promotion apart from anything else. So again, if you didn't win an award in a couple of years' time, and there's no timescale given there, you wouldn't remember she ever said it. She'd look at specific things and you might go, actually, that's spot on. But the whole thing would apply to pretty much anybody in your situation. You know, she's looked at you and what you do, you know, in terms of making programs. It's just, why are the spirits not communicating something useful if they're communicating at all? They're not. It's just vague.
How did that feel?
It was such an intense hour.
It was intense, was it? I think he deserves a round of applause. He went through something very intense there.
I had this email from a Facebook friend, actually, Facebook message it was, and he's a nurse, a male nurse who's also an amateur magician, and he basically kind of really sort of stirred me. He said, just to let you know, Paul, that a lot of healthcare professionals are behind what you're saying and doing. He said, I've seen so many old people who've been scammed by these expletives. He said there was an old lady recently and she'd been diagnosed with terminal cancer. It was inoperable and she knew she was going to die soon, and I was sat there and she took my hand and she burst into tears. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, I've been so stupid. My entire life I've worked so hard to save some money to leave to my children, and now I've gone and wasted it all on these people. And she was talking about mediums. She'd realised that it was a con, it was a scam. And he said, as she said this, she started crying, I started crying, and she died in my arms.